Viral on Thursday when a President Biden judicial nominee could not answer basic questions about the U.S. Constitution, including the section authorizing a convention of states in Article 5.
Tell me what Article 5 of the Constitution does.
Article 5 is not coming to mind at the moment.
Okay. How about Article 2?
Neither is Article 2.
So, a woman who has served 9 years as a judge couldn't tell us about Article 5, but a 20-year-old from Los Angeles can, as evidenced by a new video from Dennis Prager and his fireside chat.
Hi, my name is Katie. I am 20 years old from Los Angeles, California, and my question for you is, what do you think of an Article 5 Convention of States?
Now, how many 20-year-olds in the United States know about the Article 5 Convention of States idea?
19 states have already passed the resolution. So you might be wondering, well, which states have passed it? Let me just give you that list. Georgia, Alaska, Alabama, Florida, Indiana, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Tennessee, North Dakota, Arizona, Missouri, Texas, Arkansas, Mississippi, Utah, Nebraska, Wisconsin, West Virginia, and South Carolina. We passed in those last 4 states just last year.
On September 15th, 1787, Colonel George Mason stands and he addresses the convention. This is 2 days before the end of convention. They're almost done with that beautiful document, and he says, we have a problem. We've given the power to Congress to propose amendments, but we've not given that power to the states. And he asks a question, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he says basically, are we so naive that we believe that a government that becomes a tyranny will ever propose amendments to restrain its own tyranny? Now, when I say that, people smile and laugh, and I imagine they did so at the convention. We don't know, obviously, we don't have videotape, but we do have Madison's notes. And Madison's notes very clearly at that point reflect what happened. It's 2 Latin abbreviations. It's the words nin com, which stand for no comment. What happened was everybody essentially slapped their foreheads and said, yes, we absolutely have to give this power to the states. How did we forget that? And we know that it was unanimous because they unanimously adopted this second clause of Article 5 that gives you the power that we're here to discuss.
We're here now because we expect the Virginia House Rules Committee to take up our resolution.
Florida's been a leader on this, having certified amendments to term limit members of Congress and a balanced budget amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Now, I'm fighting to do both of those in Washington, but there's much more resistance there because people want to continue business as usual. So, given that Florida's taken the lead as governor, I'll work with governors and legislators in other states to move the Article 5 process forward. We have to go around Congress to impose term limits and a balanced budget amendment, and we need to do that for the future of our country.
I often get emails that say the Constitution isn't broken. And follow the Constitution. Just follow what's there. Would you care to comment on that?
And that question, I asked that question to Mike Ferris, who was my co-founder of this organization, noted constitutional attorney, one of the leading attorneys in the recent Dobbs case, just retired from being a leader of Alliance Defending Freedom. And this is what he said to me. He asked me a question which kind of shocked me. He said, which Constitution are you referring to? Well, I'm only aware of one, is what I said. And he said, well, we really have 2 in the United States of America. We have the one that you probably carry around in your pocket, the pocket Constitution. It's actually the original Constitution. We all know what it says. We know what it means. It's pretty clear on its face what it means. He said, but if you want to know the Constitution under which the United States government lives, you have to order that from the government publishing office. And you can order, it's about $130. It's over 3,000 pages at this point, and it's literally just called the Constitution of the United States of America. It contains every case ever issued by the United States Supreme Court telling us what your pocket Constitution means. And he said, so mostly they do follow the Constitution. It's just that one. And that's the one that has granted these wildly expanded federal powers that the framers never intended, and that's the one we're working to address with the Convention of States.
I am very pleased to announce that that committee has just voted by a vote of 10-5 to recommend passage of HJ 457, our Convention of States resolution.
Does any member wish to change his or her vote? The clerk will record the votes.
Mr. President, 26 senators vote aye and 24 senators vote nay.
26 senators having voted aye and 4 having voted nay. Senate Joint Resolution 2 has passed second reading.
All right, I'm on today with Mike Arnold, State Director of Massachusetts Convention of States. Mike, we had a huge win, a series of wins today, but just a very active and phenomenal day. I've been sick all day, and my phone's been blowing up, and I'm like, I'm gonna have to go live, and so here I am, and I'm so glad that you were available to join me. And even, give me a quick slap on the wrist. I did make a mistake. I think it was in a tweet, but in general, as far as Montana was concerned, it passed the second reading. And even though at least what Rita Peters was saying, the third reading is kind of a formality, that it's pretty much done. It's not done until the third reading is done. So, but big win in Montana, and then Virginia. Virginia passes House committee, and then Wyoming was a little bit strange. We'll take up Wyoming in a little bit, I guess. Then that'll come back on Thursday. But Montana and Virginia, I didn't have either one of them on my bucket list when this year started.
Yeah, I didn't even have them on my bucket list this morning. I woke up and I started getting bing, bing, bing. All of this is happening today. And I know it was, I don't know, probably 6 o'clock this morning when I got a hold of you. I keep forgetting you're in California and there's a 3-hour time difference. But as soon as I saw what was going on today, I messaged you that there was those 3 things happening. So it's been a heck of a day for Convention of States. It was a really positive results going on across the country.
Yeah, and I mean, look, and we listened to a lot of the testimony, and and I kind of had it playing because even though I was out sick, I was still working. It's just the nature of my job. Like, people are calling me, and I got to shoot off emails and stuff. And I kind of had it playing next to me while I was doing it, and I'm just hearing things that I'm like, my favorite, I guess, was the $10,000 challenge being brought up again, regarding whether or not the Robert Brown challenge. And I'm just like, refer them to the videos. We gotta there's a whole series on this. Like it's endless how many people, how many quotes there are of founders showing that the first convention was not a runaway convention. And like, finally someone posed the actual question, and he didn't refer him to the channel, but he definitely listed off, I know I did a video on this a way back, and I used Federalist Paper 40 to beat it up. But like, there are, I mean, what Ken Quinn, who closed out great last week for us over in New Hampshire, like on his channel, he has 5 separate episodes of founders trying to collect that $10,000, and like, everyone who's honest with themselves knows that $10,000 belongs in his hands. But like even Robert Brown, if you go in and look at those videos, he himself came on there and started commenting and trying to make way, and you'll see me on there trolling him, because like, I knew Ken was like, the early videos, Ken was kind of leading up to it. He's got a channel to run. So I understand. I get it from that point. He was kind of building the hype for the next video. And Robert Brown's, I'm just trolling him like, looks like you're just going to have to stay tuned, Robert. But he, I mean, besides that, Publius Holden made an appearance, right? Which one was she? She was in Montana, right? No,
Yeah,
she was in
Montana.
Wyoming.
That was Montana, yeah.
Was it? I thought she was the last one in Wyoming, because they closed out with her. And I
Okay,
remember
yeah.
sitting there.
These are all getting mixed up in my head.
I know. There's so many in one day. So like, for people that don't know all the action that went on today, and there was a lot of action going on today, Wyoming heard the testimonies today before committee. They're going to continue that on Thursday. Then a couple hours later, I mean, Rita Peters getting some overtime money today, right? So Right after that came Montana, who last week we told you they passed committee. I thought we were waiting on the 3rd, so I had no idea that was coming today. I thought they said February 3rd. I think they did, but they must have pulled it up quicker. So here goes Montana. They end up passing 26 to 24. And then Virginia comes out of the woodwork, out of the blue. I didn't see. Did you see Virginia coming? Like I had no.
No, I didn't until this morning. Then I was like, holy cow. That's when I texted you and I said, there's a lot going on today.
Yeah. And
You
so
know,
Virginia then passed committee, the House committee. And now the next step for Virginia is the House, right? Or is it the Senate?
No, it was the Senate today. Yep. Yep. Today,
Okay,
I'm
so yeah.
pretty sure today was the Senate.
So either way, it's going on the floor, and if it passes there, it moves on to the next. So Virginia, or I don't even know, is Virginia on the list of already having passed one? Stuff like
No, I don't
there's
believe so.
so
I think
much
they just got
action.
out of committee today, though, didn't they? Let me go check.
It was the House committee, yeah. So that means
Yeah.
it didn't get to Senate or House yet, right?
Yeah, it still has to go. It just got out of committee, so it still needs to go out to the floor.
But it's not like House committee goes to House and then another Senate committee would have to go to Senate, right?
Well, I guess each state is individual. I'm not sure how
I
they
know.
do
That's
it.
why I get confused, and that's why I cling to Rita Peters' every word, because she totally has educated me throughout this process on what states or what. I remember, I think it was Nebraska, right? They have one body, and
Yeah.
that was I was perplexed forever trying to find stuff until Rita broke it down on one of the live shows. It was like, yeah, they only have one body, so they got to read it 3 times, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, Rita's an amazing person. She has her finger on the pulse of all 50 states, and she knows what's going on everywhere. That lady amazes me.
Yeah, and like I said, I always, every time we get into this season, I always bring up Rita all the time because she's the one that really keeps me, honest and keeps me in the loop as to what the nuances between each state is. And it's truly fascinating, how this operates. Because every state truly is sovereign, and every state truly brings their own, their own flavor, I guess, to the mix when it comes to something like a convention of states, because they all get their own individual processes, and you have to learn them all if you're gonna if you're gonna advocate. So it's
Fortunately for
fascinating to me.
me, I only have to learn Massachusetts, which is difficult enough.
Yeah, yeah. I see. I because I chose to do this on a national level, really even international. I mean, we've got on Facebook. I mean, we're approaching 16,000 followers now, and I would say a good 4,000 or more are international, and they're speaking out from other countries, and I have back and forths with them all the time, about convention of states, what it is. They're curious, they want to know, and I'm like, me, I'm more than happy to have the discourse, and I tell it to them in terms of look, you may not hear about this process, you may not know about this process, but let me explain to you that we have a mechanism in the United States that none of you have. And I just say it just like that. And if you did, you'd be fired up too, because we have the ability to put the shackles on the spending. We have the ability directly, without having to elect somebody and ask for permission and be like, well, please make a bill that, please stop the spending. I mean, how long we've been trying to elect our way out of this,
Yeah, and it doesn't work that way.
It does not. It does not. Jim Walker in Iowa. Iowa might be the one that she mentioned, now that I'm thinking. So if anyone was watching any of the testimonies today, Rita Peters mentioned at the end of one of them that there was another state in play, or something active was about to happen with another state. And it was another one that kind of jumped at me, and I was like, what? Yeah. And now I forgot what it was. And in my haste to try and get this all organized and get up and jump on and surprise everyone with another live session, and it's going to be like this, folks. For those of you watching now or watching in the future, this is the time to follow, subscribe, etc., because there's action. and there's going to be updates, and we're going to, I'm not going to be putting out an event for, an announcement 2 days later. It's going to be like, someone like Mike's going to text me like, hey, Pennsylvania's going to the floor today. And I'm going to be like, what? And then next thing you know, we're going to be going live that night talking about that. So there's a lot of action that happens in these next coming months. Excuse me. And it's important, if you want to stay abreast to it, follow us on Twitter. I'm hitting it in real time on Twitter. But for the interaction, this is where you go. Whatever platform you're catching us on, whether it's Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, or even Twitch for that matter, this is where we're going to broadcast when these types of updates come. And also don't forget to subscribe to the cause project. It's Convention to States Project, right? Not Convention to States Action. So it's Convention to States Project on YouTube. So that's where you can watch the whole thing. So, but yeah, big day. I mean, I'm fired up. A lot of movement, and we still what about North Carolina? Do we know what their deal is? Because that's like one that I was actually expecting. And then we got Virginia, Montana, and Wyoming. And
I don't know exactly what's going on in North Carolina, but there's very high hopes that it's going to be a very positive outcome this time through. If I recall correctly, it passed in the House one year, but not the Senate, and then it passed in the Senate, but not the House. So now I think they've been working really hard in between the sessions to regain support in the House. So I'm not sure about North Carolina, but I think it's looking pretty good at this point.
Yeah, I remember because when the election cycle had just passed in November, I was kind of dialed in listening for what some of the movement in the state legislatures was. And I remember Rita and Mark Meckler talking about it positively, like there was positive turnover in North Carolina that may be, exactly what we needed to get it through, because we were so close, because it was one house one year, other house the next year, but not both at the same time. I think we got the seats in there now that we have a good feeling to be optimistic, right? And folks, let us know where you're viewing from. So I'm definitely interested to see how many. I know we just kind of jumped on here tonight with no notice, but this was worth it. This is worth talking about. I want to make sure when there is action that people hear about it, because you're never going to see this in mainstream media, right? When you'll see it, Mike, right? When we get to 25, right?
Yeah.
That's when you're going to see it, and it's going to be all negative. It's going to be all hate. It's going to be all JBS is going to be on MSNBC. John Birch Society is going to be on MSNBC every day of the week.
Well, if it keeps going like it went today, we'll be at 25 before you know it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's crazy because, there were a fair amount of negative Nancy's out there, these John Birch Society people, and, given that same crazy message and the same madness they were. And I'll admit, when I was watching it, I'm like, dude, are they going to let more, more cause folks on, or is this going to be right? Because and I guess we could talk about what happened in Wyoming, because I was pissed at the way it went down in Wyoming. But then when I heard at the very end, he was like, you know what, that sounds like a lot of allegations. He was like, we're going to have to do this again on Thursday. I was like, okay, to let someone rebut all of, because they just let 5 JBS people on in a row. And then we're like, oh, we're out of time. We got to give up the room. I was like, dude, if you knew you had to give up the room, why did you not cut out the last 10 minutes to let Meckler respond to all of that nonsense? I mean, they were throwing some ridiculous stuff out there. And you got Publius Hulda. And, I'm a former attorney. Yeah, you you left the Bar Association in 1980 or 1989 or something like that. It was 20, 30 years ago. So 30 years ago or so, she left the bar. It's and even then, I'll leave it for everyone else to go to Ballotpedia and look up what's her real name. She introduced herself by her real name today.
No, I don't recall. I only remember her by that name.
But you can look her up as Publius Holder. She'll be in there. Ballotpedia will give you a breakdown. I don't want to. I don't want to get stooped to that. But like, if you want to go look it up yourselves, you can. But this woman, I did a whole video on her, just tearing her to shreds. She goes into these things. She didn't have the time today, but like, if they give her the time and the platform, she starts grabbing all these different constitutions.
Yeah,
She's
I've seen her do that.
like, and George Soros wrote a constitution, and this person wrote a constitution. And today she's like, and Kaz has a secret constitution.
Yeah, she's kind of like Oprah Winfrey, and you get a car, and you get a car. You know?
I mean, it's just nuts. Like watching her babble on about this stuff. What's crazy is like, I'm so prepared to destroy her because I've listened to so much now of her stuff, and I've had to go at it with people so frequently that bring up Publius Holder that I'm just like, that's what I ended up doing the video, because I was like, enough with this lady. She's a doo-doo of the next dimension, and I'm like, I can't even. People need to see the counter argument against this woman. It's called truth.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, that goes for everybody who's espousing the JBS quotes, because you hear the same exact debunked arguments at every single hearing in every single state. And if they would only just take the time to do their homework. You know, as I've told you before, I studied under Hilliard Welch. His father was Robert Welch, the founder of the John Birch Society. I know their arguments. I was spoon-fed their arguments by the son of the founder. And it took me doing my own homework, what you advocate for all the time, to come out and be like, wow. Because a lot of stuff they say I agree with, but when it comes to Article 5, they're off the rails, and there's no reeling them in.
Yeah, and what's crazy, so one of the things, because Ken Quinn goes to work on these. Now, he used to be in JBS, and now he does his U.S. term limits group. That's his big thing is term limits, but he still comes out with brilliant stuff. And we're all allies here in the end, and he still comes out with some great stuff. And like, he did a whole breakdown of JBS and John Birch Society, for those that don't know, supporting convention of states for their own cause. They had their own version of liberty amendments that they were trying to advocate for, and eventually, at some point, did a freaking 180 and started heading the other way. And like, whenever I see an organization turn on its principles like that, I immediately get skeptical. Like, I immediately, I immediately get skeptical. And so Joanna Martin, this is who Publius Holder is. So that's her real name. Thank you, Jim, over on YouTube. So that's who Publius Holder is. And yeah, she's next level doo-doo. I can't with that one. Like, I listen to her, and I'm just like, what disturbs me about her more than anything is she goes up there with this sense of empowerment, as if I'm an attorney. And there are times where you see like older generation Americans sitting around her, and you could tell just by like they're wearing like patriotic shirts, but you could tell that these are Constitution loving Americans who are just, but they're nodding their head because they just don't know. And it's like, and when she goes up there and acts like she has some sort of authority to speak, there are those people who just say, well, I'm not an expert, I'm not a lawyer, and they let her, tell them what is right. And then we got Arcana 106 over at YouTube. Says, hi, Mike, it's Sharon, just saying you are phenomenal. So you got some love from the audience so far. Yeah, and I would agree, Mike. I think what you're doing in Massachusetts is absolutely amazing. How are things going there? I mean, are you guys...
Yeah,
you passed committee last year, but that has to go back to committee this year?
Right, and it was just filed last week by our primary sponsor, Representative Stephen Exaros from the Barnstable 5th District. They're called the Fighting Fifth. Right now, it's under the designation SD206. Once that gets assigned to committee, though, that number will change, but we're asking people right now to reach out to their senators and their local reps and ask them to co-sponsor and support SD 206. One really good thing we're doing here in Massachusetts now is I had one of my regional captains, Stephen Tribbestone, put together a PowerPoint presentation on how a bill becomes a law in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts from the very beginning all the way through the entire process. And it's about a 45-minute presentation. And we've been traveling up and down the south coast of Massachusetts in the last couple of weeks doing that presentation. And I've been getting a lot of invitations to various other organizations and places to also give that presentation, because we're trying to teach people how to be self-governing citizens. And if you don't understand how the process at the state capitol works, you can't be an effective citizen. And so we've been having a lot of success and a lot of inquiries about this particular presentation. So we're getting out there and we're educating the people. We're teaching them how to be actively involved in their local government from, town, county, state. I think, in my opinion, once we re-engage the citizenry at the local town level, the county level, and the state level, if we take care of our state, the federal government eventually will be taken care of as well. If everybody takes care of their own local area, that's how we can make real change in America.
Yeah, absolutely. And right. And that's what we're all, I mean, that's what we're all advocating for, right? It's just get people to I mean, I was listening to these hearings. I had to take my daughter to school and back today, and like she's listening with me, I got it playing in the car because the hearing is like going on while I'm taking her. And like it was just like a perfect moment for a civics lesson, right? So I started explaining to her the basics on how bills become laws, the unique nature of each state, how they're all sovereign, and like how so many people, we say America, but really United States is the proper term, because that's what it is, right? That's what it is it's united 50 states, and each one makes its own rules. And so the beauty of it lies right there, right? Is that each one has its own interests. We all have an interest in the common good, but then in the end, we got to worry about our state. And if everybody worries about their state, I mean, here in the People's Republic of California, I, I don't know. I don't know how it's going to end in this place. I just hope I'm not here when it does. But but in the end, but even where I live, though, like this is why I don't know if you've ever heard me say it. Like I just feel like there's something haywire about the election process, and it may just be gerrymandering. It may just be because they just did it again. They changed the districts again. I'm sitting there telling people I'm in one district, then I go look it up, and I'm in another, and I'm like, they don't even tell you that they're changing the districts. It's crazy. But they basically found a way to carve through a very conservative community and pull out some big swaths of Democrat votes. So it's like I don't know what could ever happen. I mean, you're in a similar situation in the Commonwealth, but like I feel like Cali's just on another level though. Like I just like Cali is just, I don't know, it's another level. But that being said, the good news is we don't really need California. There's not a lot of Californias in this country, and I mean maybe New York City, right? Not even New York, just New York City, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with Cali. It's the cities. Like everywhere else, it's conservative, but in the cities,
It's still very important though to educate the citizens of every state, because even if they're not one of the 34 states to pass the resolution, they're going to be one of the 50 to participate.
They're still in. Yep.
Yeah, and the more pressure the local citizenry can put on their representatives, the more likely of a positive outcome.
And you're a motivator for me in that way, being in Massachusetts, because like it's hard. It's hard to not, it's hard to not hang your head down when you look at your own state and it's a state like this, right? It's hard to pick yourself up and be like, look, man, America's, the U.S. is the U.S. We gotta, our Constitution is a Constitution. It applies everywhere. If it's that bad, it means there's that much more work that needs to get done, and and kind of have that go-to attitude. That's why I love chatting with you, because I know that you have, like, to see you get it past committee twice in Massachusetts was a mind blower for me. I was like, this guy is an example. This guy's an example of everything that it is to be a leader. Like everything that it is to have no quit, not turn around and hang your head, not sit there sulking, but take action and motivate others to do so, which is the key, is you motivate others to do so. You guys are on fire over there. So I'm definitely looking for big things from Massachusetts. Of course, you'll be on to talk about them. I ain't gonna let that pass up. But we're on the right road here. I mean, this is even a better start, I think, than it even was last year. And we had 4 pop almost immediately last year, you know, and I feel better about this year. You know, if we get that number to 20, I want to get it, Mike, where MSNBC really is bringing on John Birch Society regularly, because
I think that's probably going to happen this year, you know. And let me back up a little bit what you were saying about fighting in Massachusetts and in California. This is just another version of the fight or flight response, because a lot of people are bailing out of the Northeast and going to Texas, going to Florida, the Carolinas, Tennessee. But we've got a lot of patriots that are standing and fighting as well. I don't fault people for wanting to get the heck out of the blue states. It can be difficult, especially with prices the way they are and taxes. But I'm not a quitter. I've never quit anything in my life, and I'm not going to start now. I'm going to stand and fight where I am, and I applaud people who think the same way and do the same thing all across the country.
No, and that's an awesome way to do it. I think a lot of people that end up leaving, it's financial. Because that's really what I mean. I don't know if you saw a post that I did, because Facebook doesn't really share. I tweeted it too, I think, though. My gas bill came in, or not my gas bill. They sent me an email of like, this is your projected bill for next month. And then under it, it's like, here's what you paid last month, here's what you paid last year in the same month. And it went from $190 to like over $500.
Yeah.
For a gas bill in California now, right? It's not like my heater is running all day. I mean, it gets chilly, don't get me wrong. We've had a little colder than normal winter, but that means it got into the high 40s. You know what I mean? It's not like it's sub-zero and the heat's on all day and whatever. And even, can you imagine if we were in Massachusetts?
Well, I can tell you one thing. Our electric bill from last month to this month went up, I think, 71%.
Yeah.
My wife opened it up and she was like, "Oh my God, what happened?"
I went solar already. They got me. My bills were upwards of $1,000 a month at one point. They were ranging in the summer. They ranged from like $850 to $1,000. And at that point, I was like, solar it is. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like I could be freaking driving a Lamborghini for this kind of money. It was nuts. But that, it is what it is. But the fight remains the same, right? The fight remains the same. And seeing the grassroots come out is so inspiring. Seeing them, seeing just average citizens who just care, right? They just care. Like that, it's really all it takes is and people out there that are saying, well, I care, I just don't have the time. Well, then donate some cash. And if you don't have the money, then donate some time. And if you don't have the time, please. Like in the end, time is something everybody can make some of. Go ahead.
We started another program here in Massachusetts. One of our district captains, regional captain, actually named David Wilder, came up with this idea, and it's called the 15-Minute Patriot. And we have many meetings all across the state once a month. And at these meetings, we're instituting what we call the 15-Minute Patriot. And what we're asking people for is 5 minutes a week. So it's called a 15-Minute Patriot, but it's actually 20 minutes a month. But it's just 5 minutes a week of your time, because we have several people that do a lot in our state, but what we need is a whole lot of people that do a little. So this 15-Minute Patriot thing is really starting to take a hold, and it's really spreading pretty quickly from the area where we started it. It's making its way across the whole state now, and we're getting very positive results from it. And we're giving people just a simple task: make a phone call to your legislator, send an email, send a personal note. Just little things like 4 or 5 minutes a week is all, and you're actually contributing something to the effort.
It's brilliant. I mean, if you think about it, right? Like it doesn't take long to make a phone call and leave a message, right?
Yeah.
Like, how are you going to say, I don't have enough time, I'm too busy? Like, dude, it's a phone call. Like, that ain't even 15 minutes. That's like, I mean, unless they answer and you get into a conversation, but like, if they don't answer and you leave a message, like, that's still powerful. Like, it's powerful.
We're talking
comes from 1,000 people.
Right, and we're talking 15 minutes a month, not even a week. So 5 minutes a week. What I'm seeing happening is people that engage with this, they're doing 5 minutes a week, and then the next thing you know, they're doing a half hour, and then 45 minutes, and then an hour. Once they see that they get that positive response to
Yep.
their efforts, all of a sudden you're doing an hour a week, and that's when we can make some real progress in a state like any state actually, but
Well,
especially
yeah,
here.
and that's what I always say about the state. Like I always try to relay that message that I've heard cause action relay, but like it didn't stick with me until I started watching all over the last couple of years, watching all these and even ones that were done before. I've sat down and watched these hearings and these testimonials and the floor meetings and debates and like listening to the state legislatures talk, and realizing the different animal that they are from I know Meckler says this all the time too, that if you watch these you will see that it's like really are a different animal. Now if you're from like New York and California with these all year round legislatures who are just like always they're always they're a little bit different beast than most of the country, like. And I remember watching a debate that Meckler had with a buddy of his on who was a Democrat, his name escapes me, in New York. And I didn't expect them to win that debate with the crowd being what it was, but when the argument was being posed, and that's what they were portraying. It's like because someone had asked like, well, why would you trust the state legislature? And the response was, not every state legislature in the country is New York City. Like,
Yeah.
like the stuff you guys deal with here in local politics is quite its own animal. Like that's not how 90% of the country works. And like, and you know what? The guy heard that and was like, yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
Because these guys are folks, right? I always keep that clip on hand where the guy corrects Mark Meckler and is like, because Meckler was just saying in passing, like, you guys do politics for a living, I do, and the guy stopped and was like, I'm a farmer.
Exactly.
It's like we're statesmen, but we're farmers. Like that's what we do. This is service, and most legislators see it that way, right? I mean, was it New Hampshire? I heard Meckler say they get paid $100 a year.
$100 a year, yeah. And here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you're looking at anywhere from 70 to 170 grand a year, right? So that New Hampshire has a version I think every state should emulate. $100 a year, they're going in there to get the business done and go home because they got bills to pay.
That's right. That's
you
right.
know?
Yeah, and even though I think most rational people like it's probably worth a little more than 100, but in the end, I think the symbolism of it is why they never like. Apparently, that pay rate was set in the 1700s, and
Yeah.
they never changed it. Like they
Well,
just
they're
made an agreement
they're
to not
citizen
authorize a raise.
legislators. We've always been meant to be governed by citizen legislators, not a professional class of politicians.
Absolutely. And that's something that's important for you guys out there to understand. You know, the founders gave the state legislatures the power. And they still have that power. Like I hear people say, oh, well, they've taken all the power from the states. The states still have, with the exception of appointing senators, which we need to get fixed. The states still have all the powers. That it's a matter of whether or not they exercise them. So, like ceding power, and just saying, well, we're not going to use it, we're going to let you do it, federal government. That's different. I heard one guy today say he made mention that, like, now I'm getting them all jumbled together. I forget which hearing it was, but he said something like the federal government, he was talking about the fiscal restraints, and he's like, well, the federal government does this, federal government, and he's trying to speak good of the federal government. And one of the things he said was they help us balance our budget. And I'm like, yeah, you're the problem, bud.
Yeah.
like if you need them to help you balance your budget, like that means you're taking my money in California to balance your budget in wherever, in Wyoming or whatever. It's like, that's not how this is supposed to work. Like, you need to handle your own finances. Like, if you need the federal government to balance your budget, well, then you're doing it wrong. But like,
Yeah.
it's like an admission that he makes, but at the same time is trying to use it like it's so accepted that I'm just going to use this as my argument. And it's like, no, that's not accepted. You just accept it. And but those guys are still out there, right? They're still out there, and they still think, they still look at federal senators like, well, their job is to bring home the bacon for the state. Like, no, that's not your job. Like, your
Yeah.
job is to represent your state.
Well, in the history of our country, like back in the founding, there was the Federalists and Anti-Federalists. There's always been the two opposing views, but we've always been able to have civil debate. And what we're doing now by making our case for the Constitution is we're exercising our constitutional muscle basically by teaching people Article 5, by educating people about it. I mean, we're educating people that should know the Constitution. Did you see? Oh, geez, what was I watching the other day? They asked a judge, "What does Article 5 of the Constitution mean?" And she goes,
Oh, I
"It's
played
not
it at
ringing
the
a
beginning.
bell."
I played it at the beginning. It was for those that are watching it, the very beginning of the ticker. All right, and I probably should have pushed it to the middle to wait for some people to get on. But when this comes back, the very beginning, what he's talking about right now is what I started it with. Was right. What I don't know her name. That one.
I don't recall her name either, but I was absolutely
Kennedy
amazed
who
that
asked
she couldn't speak to Article 5 or Article 2.
Unbelievable. Or Article 2, yeah. And he asked her straight out if, like, well, are you familiar with Article 5? This woman was a justice for 9 years. She's being appointed by Biden, and he asked her, do you know it? How much do you know about Article 5? And she's like, it doesn't ring a bell. It's not
Yeah.
coming to mind right now. And he's like, well, how about Article 2? Nope, that one
Nope.
either. It's like,
Nope.
what have you been doing for 9 years? And if you're getting if you've been proposed as an appointment for the president of the United States, how do you not get those ducks in a row?
Yeah.
Like that was, you're right, that was great. Great in a sense of, tragic, but epic, right?
It was
But,
eye-opening.
yeah, it's eye-opening because these justices, right? When people see them, when people hear something come from a judge, especially, if you've been voting Democrat your whole life, and you hear some of these judges and hear them talk and speak on an issue, the left tends to give credence, right? When you look at like they did a poll on Americans as far as trusting the government and like trusting government institutions. So like the CDC and like whether it's judges or the CDC or any of these regulatory, and the left was obviously up the chart and the right was obviously down. The left, they look at these judges as if when they make their arguments, how they make them from a position of authority, right? Like, what's your degree? You got a law
Yeah.
degree? It's like, no, but I can read.
Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
it's not like you don't need a law degree to read Federalist Paper 40 and know what Madison's talking about. Like, it's like, it's crazy how they make that argument, but it always angers me when they do it because I'm just like,
Well, it's
as
the
if you
it's the
can't figure
pedigree.
something out for yourself.
Yeah, they're making a pedigree argument when they're saying stuff like that to you. What's your pedigree?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, that's another one I've heard from making that argument was pedigree. But it's like it's so invalid because our higher institutions right now are such a hot mess. Like this indoctrination garbage has been going on for so long. It's like not just the professor of today is a doo-doo, but his professor was a doo-doo, and his professor's professor was a dude. Like this has been going on. These coconut professors have been coming up since the hippies, and it's like one teaches another, and they all just then they get old, so now it looks like they're wise, and it's like they're still like pumping the same garbage they were pumping when they were young, and it's like it kills me. But it's nice to see. It's nice to see and know that all those JBS folks that we'll see what happens in Wyoming. I'm interested. I almost there's a part of me that's starting to think I like the way it played out because now they're going to be inclined to give the cause supporters the show at the end.
I would hope so. Yeah. So the more things like that happen, the stronger the COS movement is going to become, and the more weak and feckless the John Birchers are going to become. Because we're getting pretty close here in Convention of States to what they call critical mass. We're growing very rapidly right now, and once we hit critical mass, it's going to be like a train going through the state legislators.
That's how I see it too. That's I said that a while ago. It was like there's gonna come a point where the snowball coming down the hill is just gonna, like states are gonna start to like the people that aren't doing the reading now, right? Like, because even when I hear these legislators talking and regurgitating the JBS argument, what I always try to bring up to people is like, and I play that clip for him of like I think it was South Carolina, where there were two different ones who were like, yeah, he goes, I'm like, one guy said it, and then the next guy said it too. He's like, I'm like you. I was against it until I read my way to being for it. And that's like, we know that that's a natural process for these guys. So like, as the state number 20 comes in, 21, 22, 23, 24, like there's going to come a point where, if for nothing else, it's not like they're all going to go, oh, well, they passed it, so now we should pass it. But they're definitely going to ask themselves, all right, I know senators and House reps from these different states, like if they're not crazy, they do love the Constitution. They would never allow something like this to happen. What am I missing? And then start reading. Right.
Yeah.
And that's how the snowball is going to happen, is they're all going to start reading. And eventually they too will read themselves out of JBS and into convention of states.
And that's where we come in, because I actually, believe it or not, I get to speak to quite a few state legislators, and they might get a letter or an email from 4 or 5 John Birch people with the scare tactics, but then the constituents from their districts, 4, 5, 700, 1,000, 1,200 reach out in support of convention of states. And once they start getting flooded with those emails and those letters, that far outweighs the 5 or 6, negative people that try to do the fear porn on them. So a lot of the representatives actually reach out to me to ask me questions, and I'm very thrilled by that, and I'm happy that they do that. And if I don't know the exact answer, I'm not the type that's going to try to BS you. I'm going to be like, I'll get back to you with that answer, and I go up chain from my position. I'll ask Rita, I'll ask Monica, if I ever get a question that I don't know 100%, because the worst thing you could do is to give bad information and have to go in and back out of it and change your story.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with that 100%. And like, and look, and I never, I've never been someone who like gets too angry about someone being accused of a flip flop, unless it's like blatant like idiocy, right? Like, but like I always give people the room to be like, look, like if they come up and they say, look, I got new information, and like I weighed this new information and now I've changed my position. I changed my mind on this topic. That's perfectly fair for someone to do. It's when they come up and say, no, I never said that. I've always believed this. Then it's like, okay, now you're a doo-doo. You go into the doo-doo club and nobody wants to close the door, and you hang out with the rest of those coconuts because nobody wants to go in there, right? But as long as you're honest about it, and you it's okay to change your opinion. like facts are constantly coming in, and there's a lot of people lying to us at once.
I agree with that 100%, because like I told you, I was against convention of states for quite a while, being with Hid Welch from the John Birch Society. So I totally did my homework and changed my position. It took me a couple of months to get all read up on it and do my actual homework. But during those months, I kept my head down and my mouth shut, because as soon as I started studying, I started seeing things that were not what I had been told.
Right.
And I was like, okay, if that's inaccurate, what else is inaccurate? So I really did a pretty deep dive to come out the other side changing my opinion. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for people that can have that civil debate and then go and do their due diligence. And if they decide to stay with that same opinion, that's great.
But no one does.
Nobody does.
No one does. Nobody who's been told by these doo-doos that the original convention was a runaway convention, and just without even growing granular, right? Like Ken Quinn went granular, like he went nuclear on friggin' Robert Brown, but like you don't even have to go that way. You just read Federalist Paper 40. I talk about it all the time. Madison will tell you, don't listen to some coconut from JBS. Don't even listen to me. Listen to Madison and just read the paper, and he will explain to you that they absolutely understood. And I'll paraphrase it, but it wasn't just to amend the articles. They were also tasked with creating a firm national government. And those two things are in direct conflict with each other. The Articles of Confederation were written to not create a firm national government. So the whole point he makes in the paper is like, we could do one, but we can't do both. So like, which one, that left us in the situation to determine which one to do. And it made no sense to not meet the end goal, which was to create a firm national government, which required, and he even says in there that, like, look, we can name it, we can leave the name if that's what's driving you nuts, but like the amount of changes that are required to this document, and I'm paraphrasing, folks, right? It's written in plain old English, right? Like the shirt says. But in the end, like, to paraphrase it for you guys, he says, it's just, we can't do one without the other. So we decided to get the ends rather than the means. And if it would have made you feel better for us to still name it the Articles of Confederation and change virtually every word in it and every structure it has, sure, then we could have did it. Like, it's so clear the way that he outlines it that I'm like, you read that and and then you look at the quote. I forget the quote that JBS uses. It's from the bottom of the page. It's like at the very bottom of the letter. And it's completely out of context. Like, if you read the whole letter and get to that quote, you immediately see what JBS is doing. And this is why when we tell you folks that people read their way, they read their way. This is how it works, right? Like, Federalist Paper 40 is a great place to start. Cause University is a great place to start. But once you get through that, hit Federalist Paper 40, and you will read that, and then look at the JBS argument and the quotes they use from it, and you'll see it's tactics.
Another great example of how they use things out of context is the interview with Antonin Scalia.
Oh.
I mean, that is such a mind-blowing, because they'll tell you Antonin Scalia was against it, and then you go and you watch the video with your own eyes.
Yep.
And your own ears, and you look at what they're telling you, and it's just like, wow.
Yeah, and folks, I did a whole video for those out there who are wondering about this. So Antonin Scalia did I don't know if it wasn't a town hall. It was like I forget what it was. Him before, it was in like 1979. It was before he was a SCOTUS, but he was still a very respected legal scholar. And it was him in a panel debating Convention of States. And I don't know I think, Mike, that the reason they were debating it at that time was because they were trying to get a convention for the abortion issue, right?
Yeah, Roe v. Wade.
Yeah, so they weren't debating the abortion issue. They were just debating the idea of a convention of states. And Scalia, over and over and over again in that interview, is just defending it like a maniac. As a matter of fact, you know what? Now that you're on it, let me see. I have him here saying the one thing, and he says this because it's funny, and I loved it because it validated me, as I was saying, making the same simple case. It doesn't matter, like, which gets, like, we're going to put these through, and it doesn't necessarily matter what gets ratified and what. I mean, it does, but the bigger picture with all this is what it means to get the process complete.
The process, to see it done, to see it tried for the first time.
Yeah, exactly. And here's what Scalia said.
All of these reasons have created this feeling, which is real and which I think has a proper basis, of powerlessness. One remedy for that, the one specifically provided in the Constitution, is this amendment process which bypasses the Congress. I would like to see that amendment process used just once at first. I don't much care what it's used for the first time. I think just having it used once will exert an enormous influence upon both the Congress and the Supreme Court, I think. I think we'll get the parameters established of how you do it, what can be done, and I think after that the Congress and the court will behave much better.
Right, and they will. And he has other quotes, and I'm just doing that one because I don't want to turn this into the Scalia show. But like that whole entire debate, he just kept coming back with adamant testimony in favor of Convention of States. And then JBS took that one quote clip and played it. And what's crazy is they start that whole video up, and that's what. So I did a video, folks, that just absolutely crushed this John Birch Society video on Antonin Scalia, where they tried to accuse Convention of States Action of taking things out of context. It was so ridiculous that I had to do a video on it because they played a clip similar to that. And so JBS tried to come out and say they were taking it out of context. So I went and watched the whole thing, and I'm like, dude, I don't know how they didn't use the entire video. I'm like, if I were them, I'd have used. If I was, I'm like, I would have used every single clip in there. There's not one that is, in any way could be taken in any rough form to be against Convention of States. And then they used that little clip to be like, where he's like, whoa, I wouldn't call a convention.
Yeah.
Because the context was that he was in a conversation with Ruth Bader Ginsburg and that other guy, I forget the host's name. You'll know him if you see his face, though. But they were asking him, there was a question that came in. It was after their commentary, and someone wrote in a question saying that there were people who wanted to amend the Second Amendment, who wanted to change the Second Amendment by amending it, and they wanted to know what he thought. And it was in that context of amending the Second Amendment that he was like, whoa, I don't want to, I wouldn't want to call a convention. And neither would I. I wouldn't want a convention called on to discuss the Second Amendment either. And he even goes so far as to say, he explains the percentage of people on how hard it is to get the amendment crossed. And he's like, it should be hard, but it shouldn't be that hard. Yeah. He's actually saying it should be easier.
Well, and it will be. The biggest battle is going to come not only when we get close to the 34 states, but once we actually get it, the convention called, the grassroots army will be in place to call another one if necessary. That's what's really got the federal government scared, is we're actually doing what the founding fathers envisioned our country to be run like, by the citizens. And that's exactly what we're doing with the Convention of States Action Group, is we're growing grassroots self-governing citizens. And that scares the crap out of the people in Washington.
Yep, there's nothing scary. Not even Washington. This goes all the way up to the WEF and the globalists and all. They're all scared to death of this. Because if the United States, if the government isn't all powerful, none of their plans work. Yep. Like if the federal government is not all supreme, if they can't continue to siphon away power from the states and turn the United States into America, so to speak, now it's one entity as opposed to 50 sovereign states. If they can't keep that type of structure, whether they get the structure through legislation or just through now with willful ignorance and compliance, they're done. They can't. Fiscal restraints on the federal government destroys their entire concept of digital currency. It destroys it all because it requires modern monetary theory, which requires deficits.
Yep.
So and I can get into this. I could break all that down for you. The point, though, is that the WEF is crushed when the globalist movement, the Marxist movement, all of that, the education of our kids, how's that work when the Department of Education gets shut down? Right? How do they keep the tentacles in the schools when they have when they've been banned from dealing with education? Their mask mandates, their social experiments that they run. How do they continue to do that if they have no authority over any of that?
Yeah.
It crushes them.
One thing that I don't say is actually working in our favor, but one thing that I notice is how the media, the general media, has been actively discrediting itself for several strong years now, and that's going to hopefully work in our favor, because when they come after us, it's going to be game on.
No one's going to care.
Yeah, they're going to come at us.
Yet, people will hear them attack us, and their instincts will be like, "These guys must be doing something good."
Yeah. What do they say? If you're taking flack, you're over the target.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. I mean, you stand for something or fall for anything. And in the end, when you look at the perception of the media, and really Trump is the credit for this one. Trump really got them to wear it on their sleeve. That whole back and forth. People are kind of tired of it now, But back then, before it like ever happened and it first started happening, and he would just hit back immediately and just keep hitting back, like it triggered them so much that they like before Trump, there were a lot of people who still thought CNN was like a legitimate news agency.
Yeah.
Like there were people who thought it was a grand right-wing conspiracy that, and that goes all the way back. I mean, I played a speech, what was it? The president and the press speech from Kennedy. I put out a video that was based on that speech. And even in that speech, Kennedy's mentioned, like he was joking, but he was like, I must say, I haven't found any complaints of left-wing, bias in media, except from a few rivaling Republicans. He's like even he's joking about it back then because they knew it existed. But like it's gotten so off the rails that when he made them all wear it on their sleeve, I think it opened a lot of eyes for people. And they start comparing, because they might, you get all these people, like someone who watches Fox News, they're all in on Fox News. Like they don't watch anything else. They watch Fox News. That's where they get their info. Same for CNN and like both people that watch MSNBC. Like, so they're in a bubble. And I think that burst that bubble. And for a lot of people, it shows in their ratings. They fell off a cliff.
People need to step out of the echo chambers and engage in a civil debate. That's how we're supposed to do it. And that's what we're hopefully training our groups to do.
Yeah, you are. And look, you guys are awesome. I mean, I'm just an outside advocate. I'm trying to rally. I'm trying to get people in. I'm trying to push them to the petition. I'm trying to get, but in the end, like you guys are in active states that are fired up right now. I tried to reach out to, by the way, I want to throw it out there. I tried to reach out to my local district captain who I had been to events with before, but haven't heard anything from. And her email kicked back to me. I don't know if it's the same person. Who would I reach out to? Do I just like go and sign up again, or?
Yeah, you could go and sign up again. Or I could have someone reach out to you. I'm sure I could track somebody down for you. You just said you were redistricted, so maybe you're not in that district captain's district anymore.
That might have been it. So, but I definitely wanted, she was good people. I had been to we did a letter writing party that she had where we all wrote handwritten letters to our local reps. And but I would Silver Wolf called me out on that. And ever since it's been in the back of she planted the seed in the back of my head. Like, yeah, all right, it's all well and good. You got a channel, but what are you doing?
Yeah. No, Silver's great. Silver's my sister from another mister.
Yeah. So those that don't know, Silver Wolf is the state director over in New York. And we had her on some time ago discussing some pretty cool stuff that they were doing over there in New York. Some great movement in the local legislators there. A lot of cause influenced movement. So and that brings it back to these local elections. A few hundred people could swing an election in some of these local districts easily. 1,000 people could totally freaking flip an election upside its head. So it doesn't take, for those that think it takes, I mean, what are there, 5 million strong now in or so in cause, right? So it doesn't take that kind of number for each of them to do it locally. You know what I mean? Like that's the entire gatherment of the entire nation. But in the end, the real work happens with folks like Mike and and Silver and people like that in the grassroots who are out there, hitting those local districts and turning those guys and getting the co-sponsors and showing up on the floor to testify. And that's where the fire comes from. So but I do want to take a second just to tell everybody. So if you're asking yourself how to get involved, because we didn't talk that much about it, I have a link on my website for signing the petition. The reason I ask you to go there is because we're trying to keep track of how many are coming because of the show and that sort of thing. But it takes you right over to Cause's website anyway. So you can sign the petition. There's a button underneath that you click to volunteer as you're signing. So scroll down a little because it's not right on the front face. You got to scroll down, but you'll see a button. Click that button. All right. And with that button, all right, it will let Cause know that, your district captain needs to reach out. Right. Am I correct with that? Because that's how it happened for me was We click
Yeah,
that button.
if you click the I want to volunteer button, you'll definitely get touched.
Yeah, and it'll be from someone local to you, right? And almost like she was right here in Riverside County. Like she lives maybe 25 minutes from my house, the person that reached out to me. And I'm in California. So chances are you'll get somebody who who knows your area, lives fairly close. The people you get with the events you go to will be local. It's not like you got to drive to the state capitol every time, an event goes on. But they'll reach out to you. They'll let you know what in their district they need. And then you can kind of let them know what you do well. And, maybe you've got great leadership skills. Maybe you've got lots of money. Maybe you have lots of time. Maybe you have, whatever you have or don't have doesn't matter. You all have something. And so there's always something that they can put to use, to help the cause. And you get to go to bed at night knowing that you're contributing, right? You're that 15-minute, right? You're giving your 15 minutes, a month or whatever it is to help the cause. And when it happens in your state, that's a part of the celebration that you helped bring about, right? Because think about it, like Mike was saying, if 1,000 people gave 15 minutes and made one call or wrote a handwritten letter or whatever it may be, just imagine the power of that 15 minutes, like to the local representative who just got 1,000 handwritten letters or just got 1,000 emails or 1,000 phone calls or whatever it may be. So it's powerful and it doesn't take a lot of time. And it's like we have power in numbers and we're not taking advantage of it the way we should. There should be more than just Convention of States action getting you to do this. So, this is something we should all do as patriots, do it through Convention of States action, but because they've got the apparatus in place already to help you with that, but do it, right? Do something. And this is the something I think that everyone should do.
Can I make a quick little shout out?
Absolutely.
Next Wednesday, I believe it is, February the 15th. I've been invited and I'm going to go to the State House in Connecticut. And Michael Ferris is going to be there. And
Nice.
he's the co-founder of Convention of States. If anybody from Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New York, Connecticut wants to come and hang out and meet Michael Ferris, he's going to be at the state capitol in Connecticut next Wednesday, the 15th. Just get in touch with your local Convention of States team and they'll give you all the information that you need.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, to get in touch with your local Convention of States team, if you still are watching us and haven't signed the petition yet, that's where you do it. You sign the petition. You can find it. The link is directly on. It's www.thepatriotthinktank.com/COS. You will find a big button right there. Sign the petition. Click that. Follow everything underneath it. Click volunteer. They'll reach out to you. That'll open up your channels of communication. Or if you're from Boston and you're not sure how to get in touch with Mike, you could always email info@thepatriotthinktank.com. If I get that email, I'll forward it over to you. Or if you, I don't know if you have an email you want to give them, but you could.
Yeah, they can. You can reach me at michael.arnold@cosaction.com.
There you go. Michael.arnold@cosaction.com. And if you want to attend that, I think that would be a fun trip. I'm into this kind of thing, so that would be. I'm going to be not on the 15th. I'm headed to South Carolina on this weekend. We're looking for property. Me and my brother and my cousin. My cousin lives there, and we're going to buy we want to build like a family compound. And I tried to pick a state that the left is not going to catch on to for a long time.
You've got some friends in Convention of States in South Carolina. I'll dial you right in with those guys when you get there.
Oh, absolutely. I'm definitely up for that. And I think we're going to be near the Florence area is like where it's headquartered, where like our hotel will be. And then we're going to be, I have no idea where we're going after that. The realtor is taking us.
Well, you'll find Convention of States is a real family atmosphere. When I go down to Florida to visit my mother-in-law, I get together. She lives in Florida 74th district. I reach out to the district captain. That's her district captain for Convention of States. And we go out to lunch together, and she tells me what she's doing in her district. And I tell her what's going on here. So we keep,
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm always up for meeting convention of states folks whenever I have the opportunity. I'm going to be in Jersey for like 20 minutes before we start driving because I'm going to Jersey and then like getting there at night and then the next morning we're driving to South Carolina and then spending Saturday Sunday there. We're going to drive back Monday and then Tuesday we're Tuesday I fly back from Jersey to the People's Republic. So, but I'm so looking forward to. We've been talking about this forever, Mike, and like it's kind of a hedge for us. Like we want to build something for the family at fair cost. You know, you could get. I mean, you can get anywhere from 40 to 150, depends on where you're looking, but acres for like 150. You know, so the three of us are going to kick in on it. You know, we're eventually all build on it, and then like make it like my brother might build right away, but then I'm probably gonna be here for a while because my wife's an educator. We're waiting on her pension kind of thing. So like if it still exists by the time it's all over. But like eventually though, pack it up, sell, move over there, build, and then really build it into like a family go-to spot where like there'll be multiple houses on the property with all family members, and like it's going to be fun. The vision is phenomenal. Well, how it happens, I don't know, but like we'll see. I mean, a lot of it's going to depend on convention of states, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We either call this and fix this stuff, or well, that dream is dead because they'll be sending the Gestapos in to.
Well, when you build your compound, if you need water filtration, keep me in mind because that's my expertise.
Ah, that is good to know. Because we very well may. I don't even know what the water situation is going to be. So like some of them have water, some don't. Some of it's if it's well water, I would think it's pretty well filtered, right?
You got to test it.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, absolutely. That's good. That's good because I will definitely be interested in those services. All right, we're over the hour. Big day in Cos, folks. Do make sure that you take a look. That you start this back from the beginning. If you missed a lot, we went over Virginia. There was action in Virginia today, passed the House committee. Montana passed the second reading, which there is a third reading, but Rita Peters said so, and I believe everything Rita Peters says is that should be a formality. So it looks like we're going to get it through in Montana, in Montana's Senate, right? But then we still got to go to the House, but we're early on in the legislative season and the wins are starting to stack. So, we've got Wyoming met today. They're going to meet again on Thursday. We'll keep you informed as to what's going on there. Just make sure you follow and we'll keep you abreast of the entire process. Michael, I am always stoked to have you on. I love our conversations, both here and offline. And I look forward to having you back again.
All right. Thanks, George.
All right. On that note, folks, until actually tomorrow night we'll be on again because that's the scheduled one. So all these sneak ones that I've been doing every day, we're actually going to do a scheduled live one every Wednesday, 5:30. We do our Wednesday night live. All right. On that note, we're out.